Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are all having a great Tuesday so far. Um, just want to welcome you firstly to our webinar and thank you for joining. We're just going to wait 1 or 2 minutes, perhaps for a few more people to log in and register, and then we'll get going. And I will introduce our fantastic panelists and guests very short. Well, but yeah, I'll just leave it a minute or two before we get into it. Guys, hi. Apologies about that. It's typical. There were bound to be some technical issues, um, and yeah, but we're back. We're ready, and we're going to get started and kicked on. So yeah, firstly, thank you, to everybody who's listening, and obviously thank you to our three wonderful panelists as well. I'm just going to do a very, very brief intro, and then we'll get straight into it. So, welcome, obviously, to the first webinar in our series on how forward companies are hiring and growing during this unique time that we find ourselves in. My name is John Lennon, and I am the managing director for a company called Thrive. I'm really excited about today's discussion. And you'll be glad to hear that I will not be speaking very much today, because we have an amazing panel featuring three of the brightest minds in Berlin's tech scene, and they will be discussing, how they have been navigating these troubled times. Now, I must say, firstly, this webinar series is not just about companies hiring and growing. it would be wrong to say that everybody is hiring and the world is wonderful and everything's great. We all know that this is a difficult time for many companies right now, and every company is facing challenges that have never been seen before in some cases. So our panel of 3 experts will be sharing their advice on how they and their companies have adapted and pivoted in this new world. Webinar will last for just under 1 hour. We'll finish at 1 o'clock. It will be recorded and it will be sent to you as well this afternoon if you would like to watch it again. You are one wonderful audience. You will be able to participate as well in a few different ways. If you have questions, which I hope you do, please do feel free to write them in the chat box there on the right-hand side, and we will pose those questions to our panel. We also have created 3 small polls, just simple yes or no answers to a couple of questions. It would be great to see your thoughts on that as well. Now, I think that was listening to me, so I'd really like to get on to introducing our 3 wonderful experts. We're very lucky, I feel, to have 3 women who are very active, and you may already know them or even recognize their faces as well. So first up, we have Nina Buffi, who is the managing director for a company called OSPIN GmbH based in Berlin. They're a very cool company in the biotechnology field focused on modular bioprocessing. If you haven't heard of them so far, be sure to check them out. We also have Anna Derinova-Hartmann, who is an engineering manager for Flixbus in Berlin. She's responsible for their charter tech division. She's also very active in the community and has been taking part recently in some really cool stuff. So definitely check that out too. And last, but by certainly no means least, we have Noah Levav, who is the talent recruiting manager for the Berlin-based SaaS company, Productsup. So yeah, firstly, kind of how are we doing, guys? How is everyone doing today?
Okay, I guess one of the challenges, no one knows who's supposed to say first. Right?
Somebody start. That's a problem.
Everything's great on my side. It's really sunny over here. I'm in Munich today, actually, and this is, I guess, the beauty of lockdown. You cannot really travel that much, but you can enjoy the time, the family, combining it with work. So everything's good here. And I'm, of course, incredibly happy to be here.
Same here. Everything's great. As you can see from the whiteboard behind me, I'm in the office. So not working from home anymore, which is, I don't know, I kind of enjoy to see the team again. So I'm kind of happy. Yeah, everything's just fine here in Berlin.
Yeah, same for me. Sunny in Berlin today. As you can see, I'm still at home, so in my bedroom. But yeah, really happy to be here, and thanks for inviting us.
John, you are on mute. Just saying. You still are. I think these are the perks of the digital era when everything goes online, everything goes working from home, and we have technical issues. That's just
so typical, yeah.
Apologies.
No problem.
It is so typical. I said, yeah, thank you, obviously, for your time. It's great to have you on board, and I just wanted to get straight into it and kick off. Firstly, before we get into how you've adapted and how you've come up against the challenges that you face at the moment, I just wanted to kind of see how it's affected you all on a personal level. I think it's important to acknowledge that this is something that has affected everyone in different ways. So, yeah, if we start with you, Noah, kind of how has this kind of personally affected you?
Yeah. So I quickly found the routine, I want to say. I feel kind of lucky in the sense that I enjoy working from home. At Productsup, it is encouraged regardless of Corona. So it is something we do occasionally. But I actually enjoyed the quiet. I know it's not the case for everyone. I think for people having kids at home, maybe it's a bit more complex. But yeah, I love seeing how companies are getting creative. And yeah, it's for me, I think the biggest challenge would be to return to the office. I'm not looking forward to standing in a busy train in the morning. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to hear, your points of view on that. So I know that Productsup, you guys, work a lot.
Maybe Nina or Anna can.
Yeah, I can just answer the same question. So, well, for me, I was partially working from home, but it's already a few weeks and I'm back in the office. On a personal level, well, obviously in a lockdown situation, it's like one of the reasons why I enjoy Berlin so much is obviously like all this like also going out, restaurants and bar, this kind of life that you can do that you can have in Berlin, and obviously this was not possible anymore, and you have to figure it out or the thing that you want to do. And on one side, I didn't enjoy that I couldn't not do this anymore, but on the other side, I try to take the opportunity to like do other things that in normal times I cannot do, just like reading more, or like my mother was pestering me to try yoga, and it's something I tried at home. So all these kind of things that otherwise I would never done in my life, or at least not in the next, I don't know, 2 years. So was also a good opportunity to try different things. So pro and cons as in every situation, I would say.
Yeah.
I keep kind of dropping in and out, and again, I apologize, but yeah, if I do that, please try and continue. But yeah, I think it's really interesting to see the different sides of all of this. So kind of moving on a little bit, and Nina, how have you, your team, and your company, how have you adapted in the last few months?
Well, it's like that. So we are not only a software company. We are also like we really produce devices. So it was not possible to just like put everybody working from home. And like in some cases, like we could bring the equipment at home. Like some guys were taking soldering irons and stuff like that in their apartment, and like continuing like soldering electronics and stuff like that from home. That was possible. But like for the mechanical engineers, it was not possible to bring a mill home. Obviously, it's like too big, it's too heavy. So part of the team was working from home. Other team member just continued coming to the office. Also because we have like big spaces, so we equipped ourselves with masks and then we disinfected everything. So there were a few people that still continued like coming to the office. The majority obviously was trying to work from home. Everybody was doing project management or the software part and so on. Like they are still working now from home. So it was kind of a challenge, obviously, to organize all this workflow, like the part of the team here, part of the team home. But to be honest, was like a few weeks of like reorganizing and adjusting a bit the workflows. But everybody, also because most of the team members are young and flexible, was not such a drama, to be honest. So we could more or less continue normally. The thing that affected us the most is that we are working with biology customers, so customers that need to access biology labs that obviously were closed, are still closed. And so many projects got delayed or couldn't even start because our customer couldn't start. So we are depending on like, the activities of our customer. If our customers cannot work, we cannot sell or we cannot start different projects. So that's what happened in our company.
Sure. And how have you kind of dealt with that particular issue? So obviously, if your customer closed, if you can't sell, how has that kind of forced you to change, and what has it forced you to look at?
Well, we took the chance, for instance, to refactor our website. We took the chance to implement we are starting implementing a better quality management system. We took the time to document stuff that we were always feeling under pressure. We need to deliver this and that. We don't have the time to properly document certain things. it shouldn't happen, but in reality it happens. And so we took this time of like where everything was slowing down a bit to do proper documentation, and or on my side I focus way more on writing grant application, which is like kind of virus independent, because this is not affected by Corona. And so trying to think, okay, which are the things that are Corona independent, and they're gonna be useful in the short, middle, even long term, and focus on that. And if you are a bit creative, you find a lot of work that you can do, and that in normal times you don't have the time to do it, but nevertheless is still very important. So that's one thing.
Yeah, and that's something, you know, that we've been hearing a lot of from companies all across Germany, is that they've taken this time to focus on other tasks and activities that maybe they've put off for some time, or just get those tasks done, which are equally as important as well.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Anna? I mean, how has your company, how has your team adapted and changed in this time?
That's actually been a very interesting journey. At the very beginning, of course, the biggest challenge was to accept what's happening, and especially our company got hit quite dramatically because we had to stop our operations in many markets since people were just afraid to travel. The second realization came that the people will be traveling again, group travel or one-to-one travel, it will still happen, but we have to regroup till then, we have to wait, and we have to hang on. And there was a big choice that we have to face in our strategy in terms of attracting people, hiring people, in terms of processes, how we run our business, whether we just want to survive and hang on till people will need us again, or do we want to actually use this opportunity as shaping the market, shaping the future of technical tech in travel business, and not just fight anymore with competitors here and there for transportation for cheap price, but rather get closer to the customer, try to understand the customer more, try to maybe invest more into research, so that when everything comes back, we are not just another transportation company and we don't just have a green color, for instance, but we actually become more environmentally friendly, or we use this opportunity to open up for the customer new opportunities that they never saw before. So we don't just become another company, but we become the company. The same in tech. We looked into technical and automation opportunities, also letting our developers to actually be working not just on the projects they've already been working, but on supporting other teams, learning more, making the platform more resilient, to make sure that when we slightly or like casually, kind of very carefully coming back, we're strong enough not just to come back to the year normal, I don't know, 2017 and 2018, but come back stronger and offer something that no one else can, be it in terms of technical excellence, talent attraction, or operational model, or the way we transport kind of people, etc., etc. So that has actually been an opportunity in disguise. It's been a blessing in disguise, although still very hard to get used to the fact that, yeah, it's never going to be the same again. But the question is, do you want to be sad about it, or do you want to see what kind of new opportunities you can find in this situation? And we chose the second option.
Well, yeah, I think it's, you know, it's very refreshing to hear these opinions, because, you know, we are talking to lots of people who, you know, have made very difficult decisions, and their businesses have, you know, faced very difficult challenges. So, you know, for you to you know, be having such a positive mindset, and for your company to want to adapt to this crisis and, you know, come out even better, you know, I think that's a very noble aim, and we'll come back onto a few of the points you mentioned there in a moment. But I just wanted to bring in Noah as well, you know, to share some of your experiences, how life and work has changed in the last few months.
So I think, again, for us, being a company that is remote friendly, I think we try to take it day by day. Of course, it was a global crisis, and it was a difficult situation. But the work for us almost wasn't affected. So we had to change processes, for example, when it comes to hiring. We tried to make things more comfortable for our employees, whether if it was delivering furniture or monitors to people's houses that didn't have a computer setup. Yeah, and to be very honest, we had an accelerated growth in 2019. So the plan for 2020 to begin with, for example, with hiring, it wasn't to hire many more people. So it almost hasn't affected that, but we did have to get more creative with how we show what we do. For example, we did some Instagram takeovers from our employees so they can share how remote has been for them. We have a few different locations. Every location was different. But yeah, for us, I'm happy to say it didn't really affect the everyday work at Productsup.
Cool. And you mentioned that you're kind of having to be a little bit more creative. And you mentioned the Instagram takeovers. What other ways kind of have you had to be creative to adapt?
Well, we have we have a family culture, I want to say. There are 130 feed fighters. So it's quite a small environment and we're very close. So being far away from each other, I think was difficult. I think a lot of people miss the water cooler conversations or the environment we having dogs around. We had 2 people from the team come up with a pub quiz. So that was really cool. So everybody participated across all different locations. We had a drink in the end of the day with colleagues from remote, and that's cool. We also have coffee dates on Slack. We have a random bot kind of matching people up, and you have a coffee date with somebody from the team. So yeah, we try to do things like that to sort of stay close from afar, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and that's an important area. You know, we face the same issue as kind of how do you keep your team together and connected when you're physically apart. And also, yeah, you know, to Nina and Anna, you know, Nina, for instance, I mean, had your company implemented anything similar to what Noah has described there? You know, kind of how have you tried to bring people together?
Yeah, at some point, like I remember during the team meeting, we were trying to discuss a bit for the one that like we're staying at home. Okay, is it difficult for you guys? Do you manage to organize a routine and so on? And somebody brought up this idea, I always feel alone. I'm alone at home and I feel so lonely eating only by myself. And so we organized a kind of a Skype lunch where like the people here in the office were cooking together and then they were online in Skype and like eating together with this guy that was alone at home. And we did little things like that. There are not like huge things, but I think they were helping going through these weeks where some people were alone at home and some people can cope better than others. It just like depends on your character, if you like being just by yourself or that people don't. And so it's important to identify these needs in your team and to make sure that everybody's doing well, not just like for the work performance, but for the person itself, like himself, if it's feeling well or not in these times. And it's important, I guess, to ask and to do what is possible to mitigate a bit when problems arise.
Yeah, I think, you know, for me personally in our company, you know, I've had to really adapt as a manager and really try to understand how this is affecting everybody on a very personal level. You know, some team members have really adapted very well and they're absolutely fine, and you know, others, you know, they do need a little bit more help. And I think, you know, things like Skype lunches, pub quizzes, you know, coffee dates, or you know, just getting different members of the team to interact with each other, you know, is so important. And that's one thing, hopefully moving forward into the future, that if working from home does become the new normal, that's one thing I think companies will have to really work on to make it work. Yeah. And how about you, Anna? What has your team been doing to keep people connected?
Actually, that was a very interesting experience because we already were in the company quite open to working remotely. Because especially in the tech part of Flixbus, due to the agile methodology we've been practicing for the last 7 years, so it was quite easy. Since we've always been quite open to that. And then when everything happened, the first big challenge was, okay, I remember our leadership team got together with agile coaches, with people managers, engineering managers as well. We all got together. We're thinking, oh gosh, how do we keep it natural? You know, how do we keep people together? How do we not let them drift apart? And then one of our guys got this fantastic idea, and he said, well, guys, we're now trying to artificially create something natural. And I realized that it probably might not really work for us that well. And we gave the full power and opportunity to the teams. We gave them the tools. We created the rooms for kitchen talks, for instance, so kind of mimic what happens at the coffee machine in the morning before 9 or like from 9 till 10 a.m. We created sinks every day, just 15 minutes here and there. You can come, you don't have to. And then we created the leaflets and the kind of the magazines, the virtual magazines, telling what's happening in each domain. I set up our team meetings more regularly every week to be there. And again, some of them, of course, were mandatory because it was central company communication. Some of them were less mandatory. At first, everyone was a little bit confused, like, how is it going to look like? Like, what? Are we going to just like, I don't know, logging in at 12 and eating, looking at each other and awkwardly eating? I mean, that would be weird. It wasn't weird at all. At some point, we've of course had waves. It went up a little bit and went down a little bit, but as long as we gave this power to our guys and we told them, guys, this is your way, how you want to organize yourselves. If you feel that you want to talk, here is a tool for you. Use it. And our agile coach is just very flexibly moderating and saying, okay, what makes sense, what doesn't. And it's working so far. And now, actually, when we're telling the guys that when do you want to come back to the office, they have been very, very cautious about coming back to the office at this point.
Really, really. I think that's a particularly interesting point that, is worth expanding on. What are you seeing in terms of your teams wanting to come back to the office? Do people want to stay working from home? Do they want some kind of hybrid? Is there, much fear involved, or are people, keen to get back in the office? I mean, Anna, like in your team and in your company, obviously lots and lots of people. But what's the general trend that you've seen?
What I'm seeing is that it's a hybrid. It's actually very, very interesting that you mentioned. It is a hybrid. On the one hand, people really would like to see each other again and to experience this kind of feeling when everything gets together, when you don't have to call, but you rather can walk over and look into the code together and do pair programming within 15, 20 minutes. But at the same time, now I think we learned, there was one big learning that we had, is that, don't break what really works. And working from home works for them, at least in tech, perfectly. They focus, the velocity skyrocketed for the teams. And because they focus a lot. So now, when we want to return them back, and we're kind of also going towards Twitter / Google approach, we tell them, okay, now we're allowing everyone to work from their home office till the end of September for now, and we see how that goes. We trust our teams, and they feeling how much we trust them, they tend to misuse it less and less, and they actually also learn how to organize themselves better. So they actually say, okay, how about we choose a couple of days we work from the office, and then the rest we work from home. Or when we have ceremonies and meetings, we go to the office. When we have to program, when we have to really dive into the code, we stay at home. They appreciate our trust because they can spend time more with the family. The summer is coming, come on, finally, the beer gardens, etc. And on the other hand, they have the freedom to come and talk to each other and work together when there's actually communication happening.
Yeah, and I think freedom is the big thing there, and trust. I'm very hopeful that this will lead to a massive recalibration in priorities. So trying to shift away from work being everything to much more balanced time spending with your family, with your friends, doing things that you love to do. And I think you're spot on there in terms of the balance is so important. And Nina, I mean, how have you? I know you're in the office right now, obviously, and I know that kind of some of your team are, some of your team aren't. I mean, what's the general kind of vibe amongst your team?
Well, I think it's personal in the sense that there are people that really enjoy being with other person, like physically, and others that enjoy to stay at home. Fine for us. I mean, we are also having this agile system where, you just define the task at the beginning of whatever sprint, and then you have to do your task. And honestly, we don't care too much when you want to do it. And so if you want to do it from home and you want to do it in the evening or in the morning or at 6 a.m. or at 12 a.m., it's just up. You can just decide. This is. I believe it's like we are getting away from this model that everybody must be in the office between 9 and another time at 5 or whatever. This is not the modern way to that companies work. So we are gonna leave this up to the employees, and they can. I think that also in the future they can decide if they wanna come here or stay home. Obviously, some have this choice. If they are software programmers, they can choose if they wanna work from home or from here. If you're a mechanical engineer and you have to run the mill, as I said, you have to come here, obviously. But apart from that, I think freedom is the key, and also trusting your team and trusting what people are doing. It is the key. And if you have a system that works, an agile system or something, it's just usually you can really trust your people. So yeah.
Yeah. How about
So for us, it's been interesting because similar to Anna and Flixbus, I guess the tech team can work remote basically always, whether in HR, we have candidates sometimes coming in, we need to be there in the office. So yeah, for me, it's been a new thing working from home. For a while, I found our focus better. I also see a lot of I think I would like to call it engagement. You see people react on Slack. There's a lot of emails, and I think documentation, for example, is better, and somehow that makes communication better. So there's more knowledge sharing, more things documented. Not everything is like a quick chat in the hallway. So I think in that regard, the technology makes it easier. We have all the right tools to support the team in that way. But I think for us, we also tried to be very flexible, for example, with working parents. So our parents at Productsup have a completely free schedule right now. They can start their working day at 3 p.m. And jump in and out as they need to. So I think for us, that would make coming back full-time to the office a bit more complicated until schools are back on or kindergarten. But yeah, we've opened up our offices. It is possible to go, but not a lot of people are rushing back. So we're taking it day by day and seeing what's best for the team.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to hear that the different approaches, and the common theme that keeps coming up again and again is trust and freedom, and actually empowering your employees and being very surprised in most cases by what they can achieve and what they want to do. So if we were to move from kind of internal changes to look at kind of hiring for now. So we at Thrive, we are a recruitment company, obviously, and when this all came about, we made a very conscious decision to kind of keep going and to not kind of let up what we do, and the difference across Germany is stark. There are some companies, the first thing that they would do, they stop hiring. They may even let some staff go. But we've been really encouraged by the amount of companies that have kept going and continue to hire, continue to onboard, continue to invest heavily in their marketing to attract talent. And so this really is what this kind of webinar series is all about. How companies are adapting and changing. So I know, obviously, for yourself, Noah, at Productsup, you guys have been pretty agile and adapted, and you have been able to continue with lots of the work you were doing before. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. We did try to be more present online, I would say. So I like what I mentioned on Instagram, for example. But we've also signed up with an app called Frank. So it's mainly for passive candidates. But it's a lot about your employer brand, so showcasing videos, pictures, testimonials, and we've had a lot of engagement there. There's some videos from our summer party or offsites, and I think people are looking at that and getting excited about potentially what may come up in the future. But yeah, for us, it was about building a pipeline, engaging with candidates. I do see candidates engaging more on LinkedIn, for example. So liking our posts or checking out our career page, we had a bit of an increase at views in our career page directly. So it's about building the pipeline, showing presence. And yeah, I think people have also a bit more time to prepare. I saw that in interviews, people check out your website, they write a cover letter that is dedicated for the position. Maybe that is also apart from working from home. People have more capacity to do the research about companies.
Yeah, I've observed that as well. I definitely feel that, it's turned from kind of, in the past, it was a candidate-led market, whereas, when things tend to get a little bit tougher, it tends to become a client-led market. And yeah, I've spoken to many decision makers, who have seen a big increase in applications, and, internal applications as well. So coming to your website, coming to your social media pages, and I think the best companies as well that have succeeded during this time, they have also ramped up their marketing to increase and improve that attraction as well. And no, I mean, in terms of quality of candidates, I mean, how has that been? Have you been able to attract some high quality candidates?
I feel like we had better quality candidates or more matching the job descriptions. Maybe it was easier also because we don't have thousands of openings. If you go on our career page, we have, I think, about 6 or 7 openings right now. We're trying to be very focused and see what it is that we need. We also, a part of our employer brand is to support our current employee growth. So we always open up opportunities internally as well in case somebody wants to move within, because we do like to support that. So yeah, I think there's better quality out there right now, but also a mass of CVs that come in because a lot of companies are shutting down, unfortunately. A lot of employees that are on, I guess, short-time or part-time work. So that's been a thing, and I think that's a stage where people are starting to look around. So it is a complicated situation in that regard.
Yeah. How about yourself, Anna? I mean, what have you guys kind of noticed in the past few weeks and months, in terms of hiring and onboarding, etc.?
It's been an interesting ride, I would say. On the one hand, of course, we have decreased the amount of hirings that we do, and we narrowed it down. So I think it was also very good learning for us to be better at prioritizing which roles we need, which roles are essential, which roles are critical, and which are nice to have. It's not just because of current crisis or what we currently have, but it's also always been actually quite useful. That prevents a company from becoming fat in certain areas and a little bit too overspending a little bit too much for certain projects. So for instance, hiring very expensive experts and then actually figuring out what they're going to be doing, what kind of product they're going to be developing. So it taught us a lot. It also helped us as a company to actually really keep transitioning into a next stage of us as a company. It's not anymore exponential growth of a startup, kind of going unicorn style, massive, exponential, fast, aggressive, but rather, okay, we're cautious, we're wise now, we know where we need to go, where we probably don't need to go, we know what we want, so we've been much more clear about what kind of profiles we want and when do we want them. And then, of course, affected our onboarding. It affected, so we fully moved to virtual onboarding, which actually is working pretty well again, because mostly our teams are taking over pretty much while having all the tools, they're taking over the initiative. So I don't have to be holding the hand of a newcomer. I know that my team is going to take care of it. And at the same time, it's been incredibly important for us to see that we now also learn how to be utilizing and giving more opportunities for our internal existing talents, how to open up new opportunities for them, how to teach them new things, how they can try themselves in new projects, rather than an easy way of just going out and hiring another developer. So I think it helps to mature. It helps us to be making certain tough decisions, and then when you look back, you understand they weren't actually that tough; they were necessary. Yeah, it's about growing up in a way. So that was definitely a very interesting journey, which we're still, of course, undertaking.
Sure. And again, this is something that we keep hearing again and again and again, is that this period has allowed companies to really find out what they're about, find out what their kind of ideal team would look like, and to really improve their processes, cut down on unnecessary processes or methods, etc. And yeah, I think that has been a really positive benefit. It's also interesting, that you've moved to kind of onboarding people remotely as well. What has your experience been of that? Because I understand that wouldn't have been something that you guys would have done much of before, but how has that been?
Well, that's actually quite tough. It's very exciting on the one hand, but it's also very tough. It's a lot about structure. So we realize that you cannot just let the nature happen. You cannot just, like it was before, the person joins the team and then kind of this mingling starts. Here you have to orchestrate the mingling a little bit. So we're working now a lot on the onboarding platform that we have, onboarding structure, so that the employee joins us and still feels a part of a community and a part of a team, although remote. Now that we can combine hybrid between actually working in the office and working from home, we also are a little bit different. Like, we invite a person over, and the person maybe spends the first couple of days, meets the team. So there's actually physical interaction, of course, with all the necessary health regulations, etc., with the distance, 1.5 meters, etc. But then, of course, when the technical onboarding starts, already functional onboarding, then we have the platform ready, the accesses are ready, so that our techies can actually already dive into the technical discussions. So what we learned is that once you have the necessary tools, and in this particular case, our HR team, for instance, people operations, will be completely indispensable. So once you have the tools ready, once you're really clear step by step what you're planning to do, and you're very transparent in communicating this over to the newcomer, then the only magic that still needs to happen is actually over communicate and use this tool to actually enrich this communication between the team and the newcomer. So that's the number one focus that we currently have, because all the tools and structure we already have prepared. So that's what we learned for now in terms of the online onboarding. Yeah.
We as a company, we made a very conscious choice as well, that if we are going to, when we speak to companies and clients, if we are going to recommend that they continue to hire and to onboard people remotely, that we do the same thing as well. So we hired three people to join our team, who we have never met. Obviously, we went through the entire interview process. We did our usual process as best as we could, made some small adaptations, and then during the onboarding, we would send them kind of a gift box, welcome to the team. We would have kind of an introductory, like, pub quiz type thing, so they can meet their new colleagues. And I must say, I think I think it's been great. The most curious thing is that I haven't met these guys, and I'm really looking forward to meeting them now. But I just think it's incredibly curious, but that it is possible, and I think that if you have the capacity or the need or want to hire, then the tools are there now for us to be doing it. And Nina, I know, obviously, I understand that kind of you guys aren't actively kind of hiring at the moment, but what is your situation, and how have you kind of adapted any processes in that sense?
Yeah, well, again, since some project didn't start, or were like slowed down, we didn't feel comfortable. Obviously, like, we cannot hire somebody if we don't know if a project is gonna start or not. So we had to slow down in that sense. But what I find interesting is that we also had the opportunity, since we didn't have this possibility to just hire people like that, because again, all the whole thing was slowing down. We really need to focus on, okay, which are the person, like, even if we don't have a big financial power to hire everybody when we might want, but which are the positions that we really need? Which of our team from our teams is really under pressure and they really need somebody, because otherwise they cannot go on given the amount of work that they have, so they are too much under pressure. They really need somebody. So we went through this process to identifying really which positions are really needed and which ones, okay, maybe it's a nice to have, but doesn't have to happen in the next 3-4 months. It can happen in November when the situation a bit better. And so this was, I believe, an interesting exercise. And now it starts to look better again, because our customer believe that their labs are going to open very soon. So we are slowly resuming our activities in terms of hiring and looking around. So we're going to see. I don't think, since now we are operative in the office, I personally prefer to meet the person like in real life, so to say, if I can. But I find it cool that there are companies that manage to do a complete like virtual onboarding, and I find it exciting. So yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah. I mean, as the other ladies mentioned as well, I mean, it seems like, you know, you have taken the time to really understand what your priorities are and what, you know, when you do look again, what you look for and how you'll do that. And that's a very valuable exercise. We've had a couple of questions. I have a question here from Merdad, who is asking, kind of, do we think that the hiring is getting better or worse? Now, I think he probably means perhaps from a candidate point of view, maybe. I mean, what do you guys kind of feel? Do you feel like the market is starting to pick up again? Do you feel that, you know, it's very tough for people to find work at the moment? I mean, I'll ask Anna, you know, what do you think about this?
I would say, actually, funnily enough, the general understanding or the feeling is that the market is currently paralyzed. It's very hard to find a job, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm actually happening and what I see is the other way around. It just depends on the sector. So certain sectors are hiring like crazy. Especially the tech sectors. I don't want to go for specific names, but I guess you all guys would imagine the leading companies, etc. So they're actually hiring quite intensively. And what I like a lot, and I really like that tendency, is that they are also much more flexible about remote work, about you know, this balanced life-work balance. So it's they are very fast enough to be picking up on this tendency. So I actually see that it is picking up tremendously. I also see, what I'm incredibly happy about is that there is a tremendous increase in hirings in the area of tech for social impact, tech for good, foundations, international organizations. Because of this crazy amount of hackathons that happen, right? Matchathons, all those events, so many potential partners and startups, they finally found each other, and this whole crazy boost of that we can actually use tech to make to help those vulnerable and those in need, and thus we need more experts in that field. So this is also picking up quite fast. So I would say it depends what you want, and that's what I learned on my own as well. Depends what you want, in which sector you're looking for. Of course, if you want to go now, you open your own restaurant or big garden, it might be a little bit challenging. But if it's about a lot operations online, if it's tech connected to social industry, social enterprise, it's actually market big right now. So this is pretty fascinating to see.
Yeah. I mean, have you noticed anything like that as well, Nina? Kind of, have you observed anything in that sense?
I also believe it totally depends on the sector. I mean, this is clear. Like what I see from my perspective, obviously, again, biotech was a bit affected because of this biology lab story, but it's gonna resume very quickly. I mean, as soon as the people can get back to the lab, this is gonna be as it was before. Very soon, it's gonna go up again soon. And there are obviously, as Anna was saying, like many sectors where like it's probably even going better right now. So I don't think that from an employee perspective, like you just have to choose. It's not always so easy, but you need to pick the right sector. It's not, we cannot generalize on saying the hire is going down, or like totally depends which sector we are talking about. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree as well. You know, it's incredibly dependent on sector, but I think it is a myth. I agree with Amanda, you know, in terms of, I think it's a myth that it's a bad market at the moment. I think that you just have to look around a little bit. And also, you as a candidate, I think you're going to have to up your game a little bit, because, you know, there is a bit more competition, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, we've had another question as well from Ahmed, who says, do you think the hiring plans or identifying needs will be different from now on? Several companies made the decision to lay off employees, and they may decide that less workforce is needed in general. This would lead to more pressure on the employees, of course. But do you think that that would mean less hiring in general in the future? I'll ask yourself first, Noah. What do you think of that? Do you think that that will mean less hiring in the future?
I think, again, it depends on an industry and the company and the size of the company. For us, we did try to, I'd say, question certain positions. So we've set up a few new processes where hiring managers need to fill out a form with more details before we even discuss the opening of a position. So to get insight on the need, where it's coming from, is there any potential to use the manpower we currently have? I don't think there would be a need for less people, but again, it really depends on the industry, on the company. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Nina?
Yeah, I have more or less the same opinion. So again, it depends on the sector. Obviously, I know from some friends that work in other company where like people are like this in this Kurzarbeit in German, so where like people are only working 60% or whatever. It's reality in some sectors. Like we don't have to hide it. But I think obviously depends how it goes with this corona. Like if it's stabilized like that we can manage the number of people that are in the hospital and stuff, and it's just like we go on with this like reopening measures and so on. I think it's gonna get back to normal pretty soon. But again, it really, as I said before, it really depends on the sector, the companies that like ourselves. We are a company of 20 people. We are not a huge company, so if you are a bigger company, most likely you have more buffer, more possibilities, and you can move people around. Like you probably have more possibility than we do. So it's, again, depends a bit on the situation and where you are looking for a job and so on.
Yeah, maybe another point, we've been quite open with candidates that have been applying, telling them we are not sure how the situation will unfold. So of course we've had a process in mind, but yeah, I've had candidates that applied for one position and I knew I had something else that might potentially come up. So we tried to communicate how open we want to keep things, and I think that is important, just to share with candidates throughout the process what you sort of have in mind, but also letting them know that we have to stay agile with the current situation, and that we don't really know every day, at least in the beginning, every day was a bit different, and new restrictions came up, and therefore there were changes internally as well. So we try to be very communicative.
Yeah, I also believe this is very important. As on our side, we might say, candidate, look, it really looks like this project is going to start in 2 weeks because it's what the customer believes, but I cannot guarantee that 100%. If this doesn't happen, I cannot hire you, and this is just the reality. But as long as we are open, usually like it's fair enough, and the other person understands that this is important for the discussion.
Yeah, I think it's led naturally to a lot of uncertainty, and I think you guys are leading the way in terms of the best way to approach it is honesty and openness, transparency. I'm also conscious of time, so we only have 5 minutes left until we wrap up. So just to kind of finalize, we've had a couple of answers to our polls. So we asked three questions at the beginning of the webinar. The first question was just simply, are you hiring right now? And the interesting answer is 57% of the audience are. So it's, it's pretty even, but it's positive and reassuring, I think, to see that there is a majority there. Have you onboarded staff remotely during COVID-19? 83% of people have, which I'm a little bit surprised about. I thought, it would be relatively high, but perhaps not that high. But it's great again to see that, companies are adapting, and I think that is awesome. And then the final question was, is remote working here to stay? And about 2/3 of people said yes, it is. So, I mean, what are your opinions on that? I mean, are you surprised about any of those answers? Are you surprised to hear that nearly 60% of companies are currently hiring? I'll ask Anna first.
Not surprised at all. It's and hopefully the percentage will be growing. Again, I'm very actually happy to see this, because it means that the companies are not trying, and that's what I'm really happy to see. Very smart companies are not trying to kind of go back into the bubble and wait till everything becomes as it was before, because it never will. What they're trying to do, they're trying to adjust and use the tools that are there. And if they're not in the best winning kind of position in terms of the company, they're not fully online, that they're trying to get there. And I'm very happy to see that. That means there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. There is a lot of connection to the present and trying to actually drive this future. So I'm hoping that this percentage will keep growing if this question is ever going to be asked again.
I'm sure I agree as well. I mean, it feels like there are lots of positives coming, from each of you from this webinar. Even if you're not, directly kind of hiring en masse, you are using the time to evaluate and improve. So I guess I just want to ask one more question of each of you, and that would be, to the hiring managers watching this video, to the HR managers, engineering managers, etc. What would be kind of one piece of advice that you would give to them if they're looking to kind of grow and improve at this time? So if I can ask you first, Nina, what one piece of advice would you give?
I think I have a general piece of advice that maybe is not only like that is valid a bit in many areas, and it's has already been said, but I think it's very important, and it's just to try to stay flexible and to see difficulties as an opportunity. It sounds a bit cheesy, but there is a lot of truth into it, in the sense that if I start to think, oh, this doesn't work, and I don't know when this project is going to start, and I start to panic, it doesn't really help. So it's like trying to see, okay, I'm facing this situation, and which are the opportunities in this situation, and like always tackling a problem from the opportunities perspective. And of course, sometimes it doesn't work. Of course, sometimes you are in a situation we cannot get out of it. It's just the way it is. But looking at challenges with this idea, okay, which opportunities are there, is like, in my opinion, is the right mindset that it allows you to solve many of the problems we are facing every day. So that would be my advice in general. He's moved again, so maybe you can just.
So maybe I agree with you, Nina. I think keep it flexible, stay creative. I think being creative in a situation like this is a good thing. We wanted to meet our candidates face to face at the final stage, for example. So in Munich, I think some restrictions were lifted earlier, and it was possible to meet people from outside your home. So we had one of our VPs there going for a walk as the final stage with one of our candidates who we've hired. So yeah, I think it was funny, but we had to kind of stay on our toes, stay creative, and that was and that would be, I think, my main tip.
On my side, I would say prioritize, decide what's really important for you, focus on the value, keep focusing on it. The second thing would be patient. It's this kind of new ways of doing things are here to stay. So be patient, give yourself time, don't rush. And of course, stay flexible because yes, it is not easy, but you will be absolutely amazed what new forms of cooperation, way of working and thinking you will face after a while.
I dropped in again and out again there, but I did, hear all of your answers, and I think it's a really fitting way to end this chat. We've had quite a lot of questions, and I'm really sorry that we haven't quite had time to get round to answering all of them. We will be sending round an email later on with a copy of this recording and some answers as well. But yeah, I want to thank everybody who's spent their time listening and watching us today. We will be doing this again next week with some different panelists as well. So if you're interested, again, please do follow us. And obviously, I really want to say thank you again to Nina, to Noah, and to Anna for your time and your expertise. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a nice
Thank
day.
you, guys, and have a great day. See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.